What are your worst roommate stories? Story 1. I have a couple of stories for you, courtesy of my terrible roommate, nicknamed Poopy Plunger, for the following reasons. She clogged the upstairs toilet one day and didn't tell anyone. My other roommate, M, found out when she was upstairs cooking and happened to need to use the washroom. Fortunately, M's boyfriend unclogged it for us. Unfortunately, he didn't want to clean up the mess. M started cleaning it but had texted me just before. When I saw the text, I went upstairs, she cleaned half of it, and I cleaned the poopy plunger with lots of bleach and lots of hot water. I woke up one morning and noticed the downstairs bathroom's toilet was looking a little low on water in the bowl. I figured it was clogged and didn't feel like dealing with it, so I used the upstairs bathroom and went back to bed. Well, Poopy Plunger decided she was going to use the washroom. I heard her enter the washroom and the toilet seat lifted up. I thought to myself, don't do it. But she did. I was so mad. I texted M letting her know what happened, but to make matters worse, the Poopy Plunger had a friend staying over. And guess who else decided to use the toilet? Poopy Plunger's partner in poopy crime. I had to get up and check to see that it was in fact clogged, and I damn near threw up from that sight. A plunger was going to be of no use in this situation. Anyway, M was out while all this was happening, and I was relaying it to her via text. When she got home, she ran downstairs and made a nasty comment about how gross it was and that Poopy Plunger was going to clean it up. M put the plunger in the bathroom for Poopy Plunger, but here's the kicker. We have two plungers, one of which is more of a sink clog. We also have one that's for a toilet but has these little ribs in it to create a vacuum and suck the clog up, I guess. I'm not sure how it works. But Poopy Plunger uses the wrong plunger and just gives up on unclogging it. So M put the right plunger on top of the closed toilet lid in hopes of Poopy Plunger actually cleaning up the mess. Eventually, she did, but she left both plungers, which were covered in mess, sitting on the bathroom floor. I just about lost it at this point. I caved and washed both plungers, plus the whole damn bathroom. This is probably the worst of the stories for this roommate. I've had other awful roommates, but they were mostly just awful humans in the behavior department and unnecessarily loud. Poopy Plunger is also my most recent roommate, and it was just an accumulation of small things she did that absolutely made me hate her. Story 2. Circa 2001, it was my first apartment, and I wasn't a good judge of roommate character back then. I was working at a welding shop and had befriended this big Mexican guy after driving him home from work, enough to start hanging out at his house after work for a few beers, and his mom's excellent biscuits and gravy she'd make for us. Naturally, we thought it would be a good idea to become roommates at my place to cut down on expenses. Little did I know, he was one of those drinkers who would black out and destroy everything. Each day after work, he would come home with a case of beer and get into arguments with kids in Yahoo chat rooms over a mic until he passed out. It escalated. He quit going to work, and I'd come home with him passed out, mess all over the floors, half-eaten pizza, face down on the couch, the works. I started telling him he needed to leave, but he wasn't hearing it. Eventually, he got arrested for something and ended up in jail. I was free. For a while, he got out, and I woke up to banging on my door. I didn't let him in. Fast forward to recently, I'd been overseas for 6 years, moved back to my home state afterward, and recently stumbled across his Facebook page after not having seen or heard from him in 13 years. We talked. He's doing really well now, training to be a dependency counselor, and I'm super happy for him. Now, I've heard about messy roommates, but this dude is probably one of the messiest and most stubborn ones. But I think nothing could compare to the mess the girl in Story 4 created. It's a nightmare. Story 3. I lived with a roommate who was a complete and total narcissist. It was a $1,500 a month apartment, 3 bedrooms in a nice part of town that should have been $500 per person, but he was lazy and maybe contributed about $150 of that. His dumb girlfriend wasn't much better, contributing about the same amount per month, but she was at least more pleasant to talk to. I lived with them for about 6 months and paid the $1,200 I was paying to cover the rent because I didn't want my credit to take the hit that would result from an eviction. The whole time they were going out to eat and whining and dining with each other. Meanwhile, I never could do anything because I was burning up all my cash just trying to cover the rent. Of course, I would talk to the dude to say, man, this can't continue, it's stressing me out. I can't afford to buy food most of the time. But since he was a narcissist, he would turn the argument around to somehow make it about how ungrateful a person I was. The end finally came when I spoke with the leasing office people and explained that while I loved the apartment, I was the only one who was really giving the property managers any real money, and the situation was untenable. I also said I would love to continue doing business with them, possibly with a smaller apartment, but I was locked into my lease and couldn't afford to pay an early termination fee. They looked up the paperwork and said, well, it looks like only the dude filled out lease paperwork, so you have no legal obligation to pay the rent. Is that so? I responded. I thought for a few moments and then said to the agent, you should probably get eviction paperwork ready for next month. I have no intention of continuing to fund their lavish lifestyle. What other units do you have? And I go back to the apartment and begin packing. One day, they come home to see that my bedroom was empty and my car was gone. They started packing like crazy for 3 days, having to throw a lot of it away because they were going to get locked out before they could get it all. On the second day, the power was turned off because it was in my name at the old apartment, and now that I had my own place, I wasn't about to pay for the power in 2 different places, so they had to frantically pack in the sweltering July heat and total darkness. Story 4. Well, here's my ex-roommate story. I dated a girl for a while, she moved in, and we ended up breaking up. I let her stay and move into one of the upstairs bedrooms because I made the mistake of feeling sorry for her. Fast forward a few years and I finally had to kick her out. It started small over the years with her just being a general slob. However, she had the upstairs of the house more or less to herself, large bedroom, her own full bathroom. Nobody ever went up there to bother her. She also had a pet rabbit. I liked rabbits, they're cute and adorable. The rabbit, however, was not taken care of. So she went back to Arizona for Christmas to visit family and asked me to watch the rabbit. Sure, no problem. I go up to check on the rabbit, give it food, water, a clean cage, etc., and the upstairs looks like a dumpster. There's trash everywhere, just piles of dirty dishes and food wrappers, just general trash. The bathroom looked like it had never been cleaned at all, just layers upon layers of makeup residue, hair, and trash. Ugh. And worse, the rabbit's cage was this tiny thing designed for small rabbits and was too small for this one since she never let the rabbit out of the cage. And the entire cage was filled with rabbit crap. The nails on the rabbit were long enough. You knew they hadn't been taken care of for a while. I was horrified. But me being stupid, I didn't immediately pick up a phone and tell her to keep her bags packed when she got back. Nope, I was stupid. I cleaned up upstairs, went out, built the rabbit a new, much larger cage, and took care of it. And when she got back, I told her flat out it shouldn't happen again. Fast forward a few months, and the rabbit is being put down for being sick. She starts posting on Facebook about how sad she is, etc., etc. And I sat there thinking, "Witch, you didn't even take care of it. Why are you sad?" I even offered to help her take the rabbit cage down after it happened. She declined. Fast forward again, and I'm wondering why all of a sudden the house was crawling with bugs. I started seeing ants and roaches in larger and larger numbers. Not cool. Then I started noticing an odor in the house. I'm thinking something got into one of the attics and died. A squirrel maybe, or a mouse or something, and that's what's causing it. So I ventured upstairs and checked one attic. Nothing. So I went to check the other side, which is accessible from the roommate's closet. I opened the door and the room was once again a disaster area. Everything from blackened, shriveled banana peels to fast food bags to piles of dirty dishes and clothes and bugs crawling over it. I was understandably a bit upset. Even the rabbit's cage was still there, still filled with rabbit crap. I was confident she hadn't changed the litter from when she got back after Christmas to when the rabbit passed away. I told her she needed to clean up her room now, today, this instant, because I wasn't going to have the upstairs of my house become a garbage dump. She wasn't exactly happy with me, but I didn't care at that point. I stormed out and left for a bit before I snapped and did something I would really regret. So, being my dumb self, I assumed, given the situation and context, that the upstairs would then be cleaned, that I got the point across. So I went upstairs a few weeks later to change the air filter in the AC system, and lo and behold, the room is not only still filled with the same exact trash as before, there's new trash. And by this point, I'm done. I'm livid. I told her when she got home to clean the upstairs, to pack her bags and get out by the end of the week. She gives me a song and dance and sob story all about how it will never happen again. Yeah, you're right, it won't. You're not staying here. So no one should be surprised when they find out I still ended up having to clean the upstairs. The carpet was a loss and the entire house had to be fumigated. I even had to repaint the walls to cover stains since nothing would get them off. I took pictures. There are episodes of Hoarders that look cleaner than that. I cringe every time I watch that show. Well, at least this dude got rid of her and her trash already. Story 5. I lost a random roommate lottery my freshman year of college. She was a foreign exchange student from China, and we had nothing remotely in common. Here's a list of my favorite things she did to me. She would wash her clothes in the sink, not in the washing machine downstairs. She would hang the clothes up to dry, even on my side of the room. I finally convinced her that she couldn't hang her wet clothes on my TV. I came home one afternoon and she had hung a wet dress over my closet door. It was soaking and had ruined all my pictures from home. She came back to me crying on the floor and she patted my shoulder and said, "It's okay, it's only photos." She liked the room hot, not warm, hot. She would turn the thermostat up to 85 degrees. I tried to talk her over and over about a compromise, but finally I just got fed up. I ended up opening the window when it was 15 degrees outside. We both got sick, but at least I wasn't so hot. She told me I had to take my room decorations down. The bedroom should be a peaceful place and my pictures of home were too busy. She hated my boyfriend. He would come over and we'd sit on my bed and play Xbox. When she would come back from class and see him there, she'd take all her clothes off, turn the lights off, and go to bed. Didn't matter if it was 3 p.m. or 9 p.m. Instead of talking to me about my boyfriend, she told the RA I was being mean to her. She would blow dry her hair while I was doing homework in the room using the plug next to me. She refused to take medicine for things. I get that it was her culture, but she would lie on the bed and scream for menstrual cramps. It didn't matter if it was 4 a.m. the night before finals, she was just screaming and chewing on a ginger root. Story 6. I'm a girl and I live with a girl, so you'd think our apartment would be fairly clean, right? Nope. My roommate is a huge slob, but it's not just clothes on the floor type of stuff. It's legitimately gross and disgusting messiness. She'll leave her dog's pants on the coffee table in the living room. She cracks open eggs to use the whites, then leaves the shells and yolks in the sink to fester. She leaves half-eaten trays of sushi on top of the bookcase or her nasty little dog won't get them, but then I don't find them until days later when the smell betrays their location. Other than the slovenly lifestyle, she's a pretty good roommate, pays rent on time, not super noisy, but this is a pretty significant flaw that I've been meaning to talk to her about for a while. Then, a couple of weeks ago, she went on a 3-week vacation with her family. She made a minimal attempt at cleaning up some of her stuff, which I appreciated. However, Thursday night, I get home from work and there is a horrible smell lingering in the house, kind of like vanilla or beer or mold, and I can't tell where it's coming from. I went through the fridge and threw out all of her old food. I took out every piece of garbage in the house and the smell is still there. I scanned the tops of all the furniture to make sure there wasn't a sushi tray I had missed, but nothing. Defeated, I went to bed. The next morning, the smell was worse than ever. I walked past the door to her room, which had been shut since she left, and the smell seemed worse there, so I ventured inside. The stench hung thickly in the air as she turned the fan off, and this is Texas in the summer. I immediately noticed my large Pyrex lasagna dish in the corner covered in tin foil. Unthinkingly, I removed the tinfoil cover and a cloud of these tiny brown gnat-like insects swarmed out from underneath. I gasped, coughed, and choked as one of the insects flew up my nose and became attached to the back wall of my nasopharynx. You know that spot where sometimes loogies get stuck where you can neither blow them out nor cough them out? That spot. At that moment, I was so disgusted and blinded by fury that I paid it no mind. I looked down at the pan of what had formerly been banana bread to see a chunky, gelatinous substance that was now wriggling with critters and covered with a filamentous black fungus. It was just too much. I grabbed the dish and stormed out into the parking lot, then chucked the whole thing into the dumpster while cursing my roommate loudly. When I got back inside, I got in the shower and, becoming more aware of the sensation, I began to vomit for the next half hour. I think it finally dislodged the fly because I couldn't feel anything after that. This was probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life, and I work in a hospital, and I've seen several disgusting things. Of course, I am incredibly angry at my roommate, but as she has not returned from her trip yet, she has no idea. I hope this makes you feel a little bit better about yours, though. My roommate got back last night. She commented on how nice the apartment looked and thanked me for cleaning it. I wanted to say something, but I figured I'd wait until the next day and give her a chance to settle in since she was pretty tired from traveling. This morning, I walked into the kitchen and she had just finished cooking a big, elaborate breakfast and had left the food encrusted dishes in the sink without even rinsing them. She said, "Hey, sorry about the mess. I'm going to do the dishes later," which is what she says every time she makes a mess, and then I end up washing the dishes because they have started growing their own ecosystem of various life forms. I said, "Hey, actually, can we talk about that?" And she cheerfully said, "Sure, what's up?" I told her that I've noticed how she often leaves disgusting objects lying around the house, and I end up having to clean up after her, and I do not enjoy doing so. I think she was a little bit surprised to hear this because, to be fair, before we moved in together, we talked about cleanliness and I told her I was a quote-unquote messy person. I often leave clothes on my floor or stacks of books and papers on the table, so maybe she thought I was okay with her version of being messy. She was very apologetic and promised to try to do better in the future, but I didn't feel like she truly understood the extent of the horrors I had been subjected to, so I said, "No, I think you need to hear this. One thing about my roommate is that she absolutely hates gross medical stories, getting shots, etc. Things like that really creep her out, but food apparently doesn't." I decided to use that information to my advantage to really get my point across. So I proceeded to tell her in graphic detail the entire story of my experience with the banana bread from hell, and spent a lot of time describing the sensation of having a fly stuck to my nasopharynx and the vomiting that followed. I embellished it a little and told her that my nose started bleeding, and when I finished my story, she looked like she was about to vomit herself. She then gave me the most heartfelt apology, willingly offered to replace my Pyrex dish since I'd thrown it away along with the banana bread, and even came up with a system to help keep her accountable for keeping the apartment clean. We're both big fans of the show New Girl. If you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix, so go watch it. So she suggested we make a quote-unquote dirt bag jar, but this time, whenever she leaves anything gross lying around, she has to put $1 in the jar, and if I end up having to clean it up, she has to put in $10 in the jar. Once the jar is full, I get to decide what to use the money on. She has now been cleaning the apartment since we finished our discussion several hours ago, and she seems very willing and motivated to change. She's really not a bad person, even though this story has kind of painted her in a bad light, and I really do think that she'll be a lot more aware of the messes that she makes. Maybe the roommate was just doing an experiment about fruit flies and banana bread? But man, that was disgusting. Now, if you want to watch more horrifying roommate stories, subscribe to my channel now. Story 7. The worst story I have is just really creepy. She was a great roommate, but I couldn't sleep right for a month after. So it's literally the first night we are sleeping in the same room, so things are already a little awkward since we only know each other's names. But night fell and we went to sleep. I wake up to the sound of her yelling, "No, no, 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 no!" And then she flings all of her blankets off of her bed and onto the floor. At this point, I'm freaked out, so I ask if she's okay, and she doesn't reply. Instead, she sits up and looks around, sees the window, and kind of whispers, "Not the window." Then she stands up and walks to the window. At this point, I realize she must be sleepwalking or crazy. She gets to the window, grabs the lock with both hands, and is locking and unlocking the window over and over again while whispering to herself. She never opened it, but after about 3 minutes of that, she lets go and said, "That'll do." And then she started walking back to her bed, but when she was passing by my bed, she stopped and turned to face me. Then she just stood there, sleeping, I hope, staring at me for a good 2 minutes. Then she started whispering to herself again, walked past her bed to the door, dragged her hand down the middle of it, turned around and walked to her bed and went back to sleep. I was terrified, but I never told her about it. She never did it again. Story 8. I made the mistake of living with friends and it all went crazy. They were all slobs and I got really tired of cleaning up after them, but that wasn't the worst of it. No, the worst of it was one of my friends' boyfriend. You see, she had previously been in a bad relationship and all of us promised we would say it if we thought she was in another bad one. Did that work though? No. Everyone hated her new boyfriend, but I was the only one who flat out told her she was being used and she should get out. I became enemy number one as suddenly everyone else was so supportive of her relationship. They plotted ways to get back at me. I actually overheard them saying what they were going to do around the apartment to irritate me. Joke's on her. They're divorced now, and one of the others is in a spiraling to hell relationship. The one I remained friends with, she didn't plot, she was just a slob, is still contently married. Well, I did get a half-hearted apology one time, but it was cut off when I said I wasn't sorry for anything. Hey, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's the strangest thing you've seen inside someone's home. Story 4 is messed up. I'll see you in that video.